500 Terran years ago, the human race burst onto the galactic scene. A single ship, using technology that the humans didn't even fully understand, just appeared in our region of galaxy. 50,000 light years from their home system. I remember it like it was yesterday. The ship floated, lights flickering, engines spluttering, leaking gases and tumbling end over end for our home system. It was of course easily picked up by our scanners, the blocky white monstrosity reflecting every kind of scanning beam, particle and wavelength. Given the surprising nature of their arrival, I, as the Admiral of the 1st Combined Fleet, was sent with a multi-species team of military personnel, scientists, bomb defusal experts and enough firepower to blow up a small moon. Just in case. After all, it's not every day that some thing just materializes in the inner systems with not so much as a warning. We intercepted the craft and quickly realized that the force we had brought was completely unnecessary. The ship was helpless. No more than a cabin crew strapped to what looked like a monstrous engine block, helplessly tumbling through the void. We picked up a radio signal. Radio? Can you believe that? These creatures somehow managed to rip a hole in space with no warning, appear in the most heavily defended sector in the galaxy, force the first Armada, pride of the Alliance, to scramble for the first time in 18 cycles, and were using a fucking radio to try and communicate. Not an FDL comm array, not even a laser-directed commo beam. Broadband, like goddamn savages. We held our position around them as our engineers managed to cobble together something primitive enough to receive the signal and play it through speakers on the bridge. Once we received their audio, we ran it through our quantum AI and set the universal translator to decrypting their speech for communication. When we found the Xanthic people, the complexity of their language required 4 Terran hours for our AI to decrypt. The alien species uses highly specialized sounds that sound so much alike to the untrained receptor that most scholars who study their written language and live on a Xanthic colony their whole adult lives can't properly speak it. They have multiple resonating chambers that work in unison to create a song-like lifting dialect filled with innate complexity. Our scholars and theirs believe that this complexity in language develops because their heavily feathered bodies, limitedly flexible wings and wing claws, and beaked faces do not allow for physical cues to communicate emotional context in speech. The human language took exactly 20.3 Terran seconds. SOS, we require assistance. This is a Terran Federation scientific vessel. If you understand us, please transmit on VHF 119.5 with 3 taps of the mic. Life support systems will hold for no more than 28 hours. Our navigation systems are inoperable. Engine is out of commission. We have no weapons and come in peace. The message repeated in all of our universal comms, translated automatically into each species' native language, in real time. On a frequency below the main broadcasting hertz, we noticed a data stream, a galactic map showing the location of their homeworld. More language data to feed through the translator. Music. Basic mathematic equations. We looked at each other in amazement. What species is so stupid as to broadcast their home system location and cultural data to strangers? Were these the most naive creatures to ever leave their origin planet? My first mate, a Bentarokian named Kakal, spoke first. Admiral Alak, he clacked through his bright, purple mandible. This appears to be a first contact situation. His carapace vibrated with excitement as the blues and greens of anticipation flowed through the photophores that covered his exoskeleton. His 10 limbs twitched along his thorax. He had never been involved in a first contact mission, and he was not hiding his delight at the unfolding events. It wasn't until the Terran shared an image of Cockroach with me and showed me on one of their classical films, Men in Black, that I fully understood why it took some time for them to adjust to the Bintarokian race, but that was years away. You would appear to be correct, my old friend. I growled back to my eldest cohort, letting the translator communicate my tone as a reminder to maintain his professionalism. Prepare a first contact away team at once. Comms, signal back to the ship that we understand their signals. See if you can establish an audio link so we can alert them that a rescue and diplomatic team is en route to retrieve them, and their ship if possible. Aye, sir. Riek, ever the professional Xanthic, responded. He keyed away on his holoboard, and the link came online as Kakal exited the bridge for the hangar. His coloured photophore was a little more muted from my gentle reminder. As Kakal reached the hangar, Riek managed to establish the link. Terran Federation science ship, can you read us? We read you loud and clear. You speak English? The translator communicated the surprise in the creature's voice. If English is your language, then no, we do not. Our AI has managed to decrypt your language using the data you have been broadcasting, and we are communicating through our shipboard universal translator. Oh. The AI detected a hint of disappointment. My name is Alak. I am the Admiral of the First Armada of the Alliance, and you are trespassing in our sector. Given the nature of your emergency broadcast, we do not believe this transgression is purposeful, and we are initiating our first contact protocols. I did my best to maintain my professionalism, knowing that every audio transmission was being recorded for council review. All diplomatic communications were always scrutinized by the politicians who would eventually be negotiating with a future member species. Do we have your permission to send a rescue team to recover your crew and ship if possible? Affirmative. The creature sounded more professional now, perhaps in an attempt to match my tone. We are most grateful for your offer to assist. Understood. Does your team have life support suits you can wear for the transition to our ship? We will be able to provide atmospherically controlled quarters based on your systems once we have you aboard. Affirmative. My crew is already in our suits as part of our emergency procedures, and we are awaiting your team. Please advise when your team is nearby, and we will open the hatches for a ship-to-ship transfer. Affirmative. Our team should be arriving within 30 of your seconds. We look forward to having you aboard. The Terrans sat in the interrogation room, hermetically sealed in order to prevent any potential contamination. The Alliance learned that lesson early on in our spacefaring days, when half the reptilian species had been wiped out inadvertently due to a lack of contamination prevention standards, and a single bacterium that was as harmless to one of our member species as it was deadly to them. We spoke through the glass between us. The first thing I noticed was the sharpness of their eyes. All 5 of these so-called Terrans had only 2 forward-facing eyes that jumped around, focusing on everything and anything they landed on. Quick movements, never staying still for more than a second or so. It was unnerving, but all predator species were unnerving at first, and we had plenty of predator species who did just fine in the Alliance. Where? Captain John Rickfield exclaimed when I showed him the holomap of our current location. His mouth was open with what I would later learn to interpret as shock. Holy shit! Pamela White, their science officer, exclaimed, as she sat down with such force, an audible oof left her mouth. Ben Gallagher, the engineer, began to cackle hysterically, doubled over, laughed so hard no sound came out, and water streamed out of his eyes at such a rate that it started dripping off the tip of his nose and onto the floor. It took Captain Rickfield a whole 3 minutes to get him to quiet down enough to continue the conversation. You are here, I said, using my pointing appendages to show John the flashing system on the holomap. Did he not understand? Yes, sorry, I do understand, he said, regaining his composure. It is just that we are about 49,995 light-years from where we thought we should be with this particular experiment. He looked expectantly at Ben, who had what I would later learn was called a shit-eating grin plastered across his face, and merely shrugged as he very casually said, So my calculations were a little off, but the new drive works. This is a success, Jacko. Yes, about your ship's drive, I broke in. We have never seen anything like it. Can you explain how it was able to make you materialize here without an FTL wake, or any other resonant ripple in space-time? John and Pamela, the latter who had not said much since our arrival, both looked at Ben, who shrugged again and said, Not really. To be honest, we've only just figured out how to harness strange matter, and we know it does some weird things, like a theorized improbability drive, but I never would have guessed such a small amount could have taken us so far. This experiment was to determine if it was a viable fuel for a new type of wormhole transport. I won't know much more until our scientists back home have the opportunity to review our data and process the findings. This was the first type of experiment we have ever done with it. My team gasped. These creatures had loaded themselves into a ship with a brand new type of experimental untested engine, turned it on with a vague idea of what they thought it might do, and hoped for the best, only to end up halfway across the galaxy and by pure luck, in our backyard. That was 500 years ago. Since then, diplomatic relations between the Alliance and Terran Federation have been growing. Those people and aliens are long gone, but their legacy lives on. We shared much of our technology with the Terrans, who always used it for peaceful scientific breakthroughs, bigger engines, efficient warp gates, Dyson spheres, agriculture and farm worlds, and uses beyond our imagination. Each time we gave the Terrans our tech, they would come back with some beneficial use for it that they happily traded back to us in exchange for more technology. We have grown together, and though they never formally joined the Alliance, always using one of their human sayings when invited, "If it ain't broke, why fix it?" But they assured us that we had their trust, support, and love for bringing them into the fold and showing them that they were not alone. They migrated to our worlds and we to theirs over these many years, and all species of the Alliance are better off for their presence, their technology, and their willingness to push the boundaries of scientific discovery. One cycle ago, we received a transmission from deep space. We have been unable to pinpoint its origin. It simply read, "Surrender." There was nothing else. We shared it with the human government, who has sent this message to the Council. Friends, you have been with us since the beginning. When you rescued the crew of the Federation science vessel Prometheus 500 years ago, we knew that we had found our first friends who we would stand by through any hardship. We wish to assure you that whatever threat this is, you will not face it alone. As we do not know the capabilities of the enemy, we cannot tell you our plan. But know that when the time is right, we shall return, and you have not been abandoned. Some of you point to the sudden disappearance of humans as proof that they are the enemy. But I say to you as a direct descendant of Alak, who shares his genetic memories and the memories of all my ancestors, who first made contact these peculiar creatures, and a friend to many humans that they would never turn on us. Have faith, and prepare the fleets. Something is coming, and if the humans have taken it this seriously, we must do the same.